He raised his glass in the air like he just won something. Maybe he thought he did. Maybe they all did. Everyone around the bar burst out laughing, eyes locked on me like I was the setup to a joke I hadn't heard yet. I stood there holding a half-empty glass of flat champagne, wondering how the hell I'd become the punchline at my wife's company party. No introduction, no warning, just laughter. And him, the guy in the slim-fit navy suit with the kind of smirk that tells you he's gotten away with everything his whole life. He didn't even try to hide it. He wanted me to hear him. Who invited the IT guy's dad? He shouted over the music, motioning toward me. Roars. Even the bartender chuckled. I wasn't anyone's dad. I was my wife's husband. And I hadn't even opened my mouth yet. Justine was nowhere in sight. Of course she wasn't. She had probably wandered off again to grab food or check on something. Phrases she used lately to disappear from my side like I was some accessory that didn't match the outfit. I stood still. My face burned. The guy's friends clapped him on the back like he was a gladiator, and I was just the beaten animal in the sand. I took a sip of the champagne and forced it down. Bitter. Warm. Exactly like everything else in my life lately. He kept going. I mean, come on, he laughed, loud and wild now. Don't tell me this guy's with Justine. More laughter. Someone muttered, poor dude. And I swear, I actually heard a woman go yikes. And then, finally, from somewhere behind him, her voice. Chase, that's enough. Justine. She stepped out from the crowd, her smile tight and polite, like someone playing damage control. But the damage was done. Chase turned, eyebrows up. Oh, come on, Jus. He's your husband? I thought you said he was, funny. I didn't say a word. Not when she laughed nervously. Not when she said, he is, without looking at me. Not even when Chase raised his drink again and said, well, if he's funny, let him speak for himself. Come on, man, got anything to say? And the room went still. They actually waited. I stared at him. I stared at her. And I thought about how long I'd ignored this exact feeling. The sinking weight in my chest, the smiles that didn't reach her eyes, the nights she said she was too tired to talk, and the way she started dressing up more for casual work events than she ever did for date nights with me. And I finally opened my mouth. Just not to speak. I smiled, took out my phone, opened the folder I'd hidden for 2 months, hit play. And let's just say, when Chase heard his own voice moaning her name in a hotel hallway, no one laughed after that. The audio wasn't crystal clear. I mean, hallway mics only catch so much. But it didn't need to be. You could hear enough. Enough to feel sick. Enough to make every person standing around us drop the fake smiles and suddenly pretend they weren't listening. And in the middle of it all, Justine stood there like a wax figure in a museum. She didn't gasp. She didn't cover her mouth. She didn't even deny it. No, she just froze. As if she'd rehearsed this moment in her head so many times that when it finally came, her only reaction left was nothing at all. And I think that was the part that crushed me the most. See, you expect screaming. You expect tears, maybe excuses. You expect someone to at least try. But no. She stood there in her silver heels and black dress, blinking like the video playing from my phone was some art exhibit she didn't really care about. And Chase? That coward. He didn't even try to defend himself. He just took a step back like the building was on fire, and he didn't want to be seen with the gasoline. Someone from the crowd whispered, "Is that him?" And another one said, "No way, she wouldn't." But their voices died off fast. Because it was him. Same voice. Same laugh. Same smug tone. Calling her babe. Telling her the hotel room number. Telling her he'd make her forget all about her little husband tonight. I don't remember hitting stop on the recording. I think someone bumped into me or the music kicked back in. Either way, it didn't matter. Everyone had heard enough. Everyone had seen enough. The party, at least for me, was over. But I didn't leave right away. I waited. I wanted to see if she'd come to me. Say something. Anything. But she didn't. She just slowly walked to the back of the room, brushing past stunned coworkers, like a ghost avoiding the living. So I followed. Not out of hope. Out of necessity. She stood near the back exit, staring at the parking lot through the glass. When I stepped beside her, she finally spoke. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. No apology. No regret. Just that. Like I had embarrassed her. I laughed, and it wasn't even bitter. It was hollow, confused, exhausted. "You slept with a guy from your office," I said. "The same guy who humiliated me in front of a crowd. while you just stood there. And now I'm the one who went too far? She finally looked at me. Her eyes were glassy, but not from tears. More like irritation. It wasn't like that. That line. It wasn't like that. The universal anthem of every cheater caught red-handed. I shook my head. Just tell me how long. That's it. I'll walk away. No fight. No scene. I just want the truth, Justine. She swallowed hard, then looked down. And that silence, that stretched out pause that lasted forever, was my answer. 6 months, she finally muttered. 6 months. 6 months of smiling at me across the dinner table. 6 months of pretending everything was okay. 6 months of choosing him over me, day after day. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just nodded once and turned toward the exit. She didn't stop me. Not once. And that was when it really sank in. I wasn't walking away from a marriage. I was walking away from a performance I didn't realize I was in. I was the guy who paid for the stage, lit the lights, and never got to say a single line. I didn't go home that night. I drove around for hours. Ended up at an all-night diner. Got a slice of pie I didn't finish. And somewhere between the first and last bite, I made a decision. This wasn't over. Not yet. Because if she could pretend for 6 months, so could I. She thought the exposure at the party was the worst thing that could happen. She had no idea what was coming next. I wasn't supposed to go back. That was the deal I made with myself in the car that night. After the diner, after I couldn't taste the pie, after I stared at the bill for 20 straight minutes, I told myself I'd get a hotel, figure out a lawyer, and vanish from her life like a name wiped off glass. But when I opened my wallet and realized I'd left my credit card back at the house, well, fate has a funny way of dragging you back through the mess. It was past 2 a.m. when I unlocked the front door. The house was dark, silent. Not even the hallway nightlight was on, and that thing never died. I didn't know if she was home or not. Part of me hoped she wasn't, but I didn't call out. I just walked through the house like I was breaking into someone else's life. Every step felt heavier than the last. The rug in the hallway still had the wine stain from that perfect anniversary dinner. The coat she never wore anymore still hung by the door. All of it felt like a museum of moments that never meant what I thought they did. I went upstairs to grab the card and maybe a change of clothes. That's all. Just in and out. But when I opened the drawer on my side of the bed, I noticed something strange, a second phone. Black. Face down. The screen lit up with a notification as I opened the drawer, like it was waiting for me. Chase, you good? Need anything covered? I stared at it for a solid minute, like my brain refused to connect the pieces. Then I picked it up. No password. Of course not. She trusted him enough not to need one. The text went back months. Not just flirty nonsense either, full-blown planning. Times, places, alibis. Discussions about me. Jokes about how he'll never figure it out. One message even said, Justine, he's too soft. He still brings me coffee in bed when I forget to say goodnight. I don't know how long I stood there reading, scrolling, hand trembling more with each tap. At one point I realized I was shaking, actually shaking. Not with anger. With humiliation. With the sheer size of the lie I'd lived in. They weren't just sneaking around. They were mocking me while doing it. And then came the part that stopped my heart cold. A message from a week ago. Justine, don't worry. If he ever finds out, I'll flip it on him. Say he's unstable. I've been leaving hints for a while. He's already started questioning himself. My knees nearly gave out. She wasn't just planning to cheat. She was preparing to destroy me in the fallout. And I remembered it all then. The little manipulations, the sudden questions about my mental health in front of friends, the casual suggestions that maybe I talked to someone, the misplaced items she swore I moved. She was planting seeds in everyone's mind that I was unraveling, just in case she ever needed a clean exit. The card didn't matter anymore. I sat down on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, and laughed. This sick, broken laugh that sounded more like a cough. She had rehearsed this whole thing like a play. A sweet, thoughtful, sensitive husband turning into the erratic, paranoid one. She'd probably already told Chase she could handle it if I snapped. And that's when I realized something terrifying. She wasn't afraid of me. She was confident I wouldn't do anything. She thought I'd crumble. She thought I'd disappear quietly. She thought I'd let her walk away with everything. The house, the narrative, the sympathy. But now, with this phone? No. She handed me the script she wrote to ruin me. Now I was going to rewrite the ending. And she'd never see it coming. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat in the dark with the second phone in my hand, the one she'd so carelessly left behind like it was nothing, like I was nothing. I read every thread, every photo, every voice note. There were even screenshots of our texts, one she sent to Chase with captions like, "Look how sweet he still is. Poor guy." And there was that video too, low quality, but enough to show her in the passenger seat of Chase's car, laughing as he kissed her neck and flipped off the camera. I knew I could have forwarded it all to myself, but I didn't. Not yet. I wanted her to see me with it. I needed her to feel that moment, to know I knew everything. Not through yelling, not through begging, through silence. So I waited. Around 7:23 a.m., the door creaked open downstairs. I heard her heels first, then the familiar rhythm of her morning routine. Keys drop, coat on hook, purse on the sideboard. A little yawn. She thought it was just another day. She thought I was gone for good. I sat at the edge of the bed, elbows on knees, phone resting in my palm like a loaded weapon. When she came up the stairs, she was humming. And then she saw me. She froze in the hallway. Her mouth opened like she was about to speak, but no words came out. Her eyes darted between my face and the phone in my hand. She recognized it immediately. "You left it unlocked," I said, voice calm, almost conversational. "You should be more careful." Justine didn't move. Her face didn't even twitch. For someone so obsessed with control, she sure wasn't prepared for this. "Ellis," she started slowly, "I can explain." "Don't." I cut her off, standing. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even look angry. I just stood there, taller than I'd felt in months. "You already did. Every word. In here." I held up the phone. Her mask cracked a little then. Not fully, but just enough to see the panic bubbling under the surface. She stepped forward, hands slightly raised, not quite reaching for me, but not backing off either. "It was a mistake," she said softly, like we were in some indie drama. "I never meant for it to go this far. I wasn't thinking clearly. You and I were in a weird place." "Stop." That one word, flat, unshaken, actually made her flinch. I saw her blink like she couldn't believe I had interrupted her. "I read the whole plan," I said. "How you'd twist it if I found out. How you'd gaslight me. Claim I was unstable. Say you were scared. You prepped for this. Don't you dare act like it just happened." She opened her mouth again, instinctively, reflexively, but I was already moving. I walked past her toward the stairs, brushing her shoulder. She turned quickly, following. "Where are you going?" "To get breakfast," I said casually. "I haven't eaten. I think I'll sit down and figure out how I want to use what I found." "Ellis, wait. Please, can we talk about this first? Can we sit down?" I stopped midway down the stairs and looked back at her. "You've had 6 months to talk. You spent that time planning how to make me look crazy if I ever found out. You really think I want to talk now?" Her face shifted again. It wasn't guilt anymore. It was calculation. She was already rewriting the narrative in her head. I could see it. I knew her that well. But what she didn't know was that I'd already made copies. I'd backed everything up, and I wasn't going to use it in court. Not yet. I had something better in mind. I was going to let her destroy herself, slowly, publicly, socially, the way she tried to do to me. But not by yelling or seeking revenge in some movie-style explosion. No, I was going to do it methodically, just like she did. Because if she wanted a war, I'd give her one, just quieter, sharper, and permanent. She called me 15 times that day, left 9 voicemails, each one more desperate than the last. The first few were filled with the usual fluff. "We made a mistake. Let's fix this. Please don't do anything you'll regret." But by the 6th one, her tone changed. It got sharper, colder. She started saying things like, "We should be adults about this, and think about how this will look for you, too." She was losing grip, and I hadn't even done anything yet. But that was the beauty of it. I didn't need to post screenshots, blast her online, or make some dramatic public announcement. No, I knew Justine better than she knew herself, and I knew she couldn't sit still when she felt control slipping. So I disappeared. Not physically, emotionally, digitally. I didn't text, didn't respond, didn't block her either. I let her spiral. And by the time I came home that evening, calm, silent, unreadable, she was sitting on the couch like a statue, her face pale, makeup from the morning barely holding together. She stood up as soon as I stepped inside. "Ellis," she said quickly, like she was ready with a speech. "Can we talk, please? I've been thinking, and I really believe we can." I walked right past her, and opened the fridge. That silence, that complete lack of reaction, it made her flinch harder than yelling ever would. I cracked open a bottle of water and finally looked at her. "You know what the most fascinating part is?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "You were willing to wreck my life to protect your lie. But now that I know the truth, I don't have to lie at all." She blinked, clearly trying to process what I meant. "I didn't tell anyone," I continued. "Not your family, not your friends, not HR, not even Chase's fiancé. But you're panicking like I already did." Her mouth opened, then closed again. She hadn't known I knew about that. About how Chase was engaged, not single, like she swore to me. Yeah, the tangled web she wove. I'd started pulling the threads. "You're not scared of what I'll do," I said, stepping closer. "You're scared I'll do nothing. Because if I walk away without blowing everything up, then people might start wondering what really happened. Why we split. And you can't control silence, can you?" She stared at me, lips slightly parted. Her breathing changed. I could see the panic taking root. "You need to be the one who gets to explain everything first," I said. "You need to be the one who owns the story." And then I handed her the phone. Not mine. Hers. The second one. I'd wiped it. But before doing that, I'd transferred the contents onto a secure drive. "Just in case. You're free to spin it however you want," I said. "You're good at that. Just remember, I've got the original script. And if I ever feel like the audience deserves the truth, I'll let the sentence hang in the air." She didn't speak. She sat back down slowly, like her legs had given out. I could feel the shift, the gears turning, the balance of power tipping for the first time in, maybe ever. And I didn't yell. I didn't demand answers. I didn't even ask for an apology. Because I finally understood something about people like her. Silence ruins them more than rage ever could. So I left her sitting there, choking on the weight of her own lies, while I went upstairs to pack a second suitcase. I wasn't rushing. Let her sweat. Let her start wondering who else I'd spoken to. Who else might already know. Who else she'd have to convince. And best of all, I wasn't going to lift a single finger to destroy her. She'd do it herself. It didn't take long. Just 2 days of silence from me, and she started unraveling faster than I expected. Not because of guilt. No, that would have been too human for someone like Justine. She unraveled because silence meant she'd lost control of the story. And losing control? That was her personal hell. She started making calls. I knew because I checked the shared phone records while I was staying at a quiet little hotel across town. I could see her outgoing calls to friends, her mom, even her boss, spaced out with surgical precision, like she was building her defense in advance. But what really got my attention was when she called Chase, and he didn't pick up. I imagine that must have shaken her. Especially since, according to the phone logs I still had backed up, they'd been talking nearly every day for months. And now? Radio silence. Curious, right? She tried texting him too. I still had access to her cloud backups, which she'd stupidly never deactivated on the iPad. Every time she messaged him, it came back with that haunting little delivered sign and no reply. The great Chase was ghosting her. That's when I realized something important. She'd assumed he'd be there to clean it all up with her, to keep the illusion going, to back her version of events. But Chase was smart in a very specific way, self-preserving. He knew what I had on them. And if there's one thing narcissists hate more than being exposed, it's getting dragged down with someone else's wreckage. So he left her to twist in the wind. By the third day, she couldn't take it anymore. She showed up at my hotel. I don't know how she found me, but there she was, outside my door, knocking with that pathetic kind of rhythm that sounds like shame. I opened it halfway and leaned against the frame. She looked rough. No makeup, puffy eyes, hair tied back like she hadn't bothered. Or maybe she thought it would help sell some last-ditch performance of sincerity. "Ellis," she said, voice dry, "please. Just let me talk." "I'm listening." She blinked, not expecting that. I guess she thought I'd slam the door or yell. No, I wasn't giving her the drama. She needed to flip the script. She stepped inside cautiously, like the floor might break under her. She sat on the chair near the window and stared out for a second before turning to me. "I just want to explain what happened. You already did. You and Chase explained everything in detail, night after night." I sat on the edge of the bed, calm as ever. "So what's left?" She rubbed her face. "You don't understand what he was like." "Don't," I said, holding up a hand. "You don't get to rewrite it now. That phone of yours recorded the real version." She sighed, long and heavy, like she was tired of pretending. "He blocked me," she said quietly. I think he told someone at work. I didn't answer. I just raised an eyebrow. He hasn't shown up in 2 days. And someone in the office said HR asked about inappropriate communication. I think they found something. Maybe you sent something? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Nope. Haven't said a word to anyone. She stared at me like that couldn't possibly be true. But it was. That's when her expression cracked for the first time. Not because she was sorry, but because she realized someone else had beaten her to the punch. Someone else must have found something. Maybe Chase panicked and wiped his phone. Maybe he tried to get ahead of it. Either way, the story was spinning, and she wasn't the one holding the pen anymore. She stood up slowly and whispered, "Are you going to destroy me?" I tilted my head. "You already did. I'm just not cleaning up the mess this time." She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just left. And I could tell, from the way her shoulders slumped, from the hesitation at the door, that she finally understood something I'd hoped she never would. I didn't need to burn her life down. All I had to do was walk away and let gravity finish the job. I didn't think it would happen this fast. I figured she'd keep faking control for a while longer, keep pretending she had a plan, that she was still 2 steps ahead. But the thing about liars like Justine is, once their mask slips even a little, people start remembering all the other cracks they ignored. And once that starts, it spreads like fire. It began with a text from someone I barely knew, Evan, one of her coworkers. We'd only met once at a holiday party, where he shook my hand a little too firmly and called me the mysterious husband. At the time, I thought he was just another corporate robot, but apparently, he'd seen more than I realized. His message was short. "Hey, not trying to get in your business, but is everything okay with you and Justine? Heard something weird today?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The next day, I got another one. "So Chase is out." Like out. Someone reported him. Not sure who. Justine's been in and out of HR all morning. She looked rattled. Still, I said nothing. And then a third message hit, and this one nearly made me laugh. "Bro, someone just said Justine was crying in the bathroom. Never seen that before. What the hell is going on?" I didn't reply to that one either, but by then, I had a pretty good idea of what was happening. Someone else, maybe Chase's fiancé, maybe another coworker who connected the dots, had gone to HR. Maybe they saw the messages. Maybe Justine slipped up. Maybe karma had simply decided to clock in. But the truly ironic part? I never had to lift a finger. All the evidence I'd quietly gathered, the cold rage I'd buried, the revenge plans I'd built in my head, they were suddenly unnecessary. The house of cards she built was collapsing under its own weight, and she was standing right in the center. That night, I got an email. Not from her. Not from anyone I knew. It was from someone in her HR department. Subject line, follow-up request, personal contact. Inside, it simply said, "We are conducting a workplace inquiry and would like to speak with you privately about any inappropriate behavior you may have been witness to. Please let us know if you are available this week for a confidential discussion." I sat back in the hotel chair, staring at the screen, trying to process it. They thought I might be a witness. They assumed I had seen something. And in a way, I had, but not in the office. That email told me everything I needed to know. Her entire web was unraveling. She was no longer the respected, sharp, high-performing woman with the tight grip on her team. She was a rumor, a problem, a subject in an internal investigation. And while I could have stepped in, clarified the facts, sent the phone backups, pushed her further under, I didn't. Because what was happening now? This wasn't revenge. This was gravity. This was the cost of her games coming back to collect. And it was far better than anything I could have orchestrated myself. But even as I watched her life cave in, a part of me was still waiting for her next move. Because someone like Justine doesn't go down without twisting the story one last time. I didn't have to wait long. The next morning, a letter slipped under my hotel door. No return address. Just my name. Inside, one line written in her handwriting, no greeting, no explanation. "If I lose everything, I'll make sure you do too." And that was when I realized she wasn't just spiraling. She was about to go nuclear. The letter should have rattled me. A thin, bitter threat scribbled in her perfectly neat handwriting. Like she still believed she had the power to flip everything around, even now. Even after all of it. But the truth? I didn't feel fear. I felt calm. Because she'd already lost the one thing people like her can't live without. The benefit of the doubt. That's the secret, isn't it? Manipulators like Justine survive off of perception. They don't need to be innocent, just believable. As long as they control the narrative, they win. But once that thread snaps, once people start seeing the pattern, the lies, the inconsistencies, it's over. Everything else falls like dominoes. And her dominoes were already mid-fall. I never responded to the note. I didn't storm her job or call her friends or try to clear my name. Because there was nothing to clear. I'd done nothing wrong. She knew that. Everyone was starting to know that. The next week, I met with a quiet, sharp-eyed lawyer who didn't blink once while reviewing the evidence I collected. When I explained that I wasn't looking to ruin Justine's career or sue her for defamation, just to make a clean exit, she smiled and said, "You've done more damage by doing nothing than most men do with a court case." That made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. We filed the divorce quietly, efficiently. She never contested a single item. I think by then she knew she didn't have the energy to fight. The HR investigation at her company had reached her desk officially. She was placed on temporary leave, which we both knew was just code for, "We're waiting for the lawyers to tell us how to fire you without drama." Chase, from what I heard, moved out of state. Probably to dodge whatever fallout was heading his way from his own fiancée, or maybe her legal team. I didn't care enough to follow up. As for me, I moved out of the hotel, found a quiet place outside the city with a short lease and high windows. Nothing fancy, but peaceful. I started reading again, walking, eating meals I didn't rush through. I even found the energy to take a weekend trip up north. Just me, a borrowed truck, and no expectations. And I started sleeping through the night. Not because I got revenge, not because I won, but because I didn't let her take my soul with her downfall. I protected it, quietly, carefully, piece by piece. A few months later, I got a message on LinkedIn, a polite one, from someone I'd never met. A woman. She said she had heard I was going through a divorce, and though she hoped she wasn't overstepping, she wanted to say she admired how I'd handled it. She used to work with Justine. Said she always knew something was off, but she hadn't had the courage to say it then. "You weren't crazy," she wrote. "You were just too decent for that environment." It made me laugh. A soft, real laugh. Not because I needed her validation, but because I finally didn't. In the end, Justine lost her job. She kept the house for a few months, but sold it soon after. I never reached out. I didn't need to see her apology or hear her regrets. I didn't need closure, because I had built something better than revenge. A life without her. And that life? It finally feels like mine.